so that we can just speak freely after that, but just your introduction will be recorded, if that makes sense.
Okay, I feel so special.
And Pat is in. Pat was here and he left. So Dudu and Pat will do introductions, who you are and why you're in the book club, and if you have any comment that's for on the book. Pat, can you? Nice to see you again.
Okay, should I start?
Yes, please, Dudu. And then after Dudu, Pat, do exactly what Dudu did, but not better because she must look better than you.
Right. My name is Dudu. Dudu's in a skulk. Skulk is my brother from the white mother. Why did I join? Trevor dragged me in with all my braids and said, "You shall and you will." He's not gonna take any no for an answer. But yeah, I like reading. So every time we talk with Trevor, there's a book I'm reading. I read about 3 at a time. Don't ask me if I do finish them. But yeah, I like reading. So I thought this is a good part, good club for me to join, especially if some of the books I can't finish. So I know for the club we'll finish it and we can then talk about it. So I'm glad I'm here. Over to you, Pat.
Hi, my name is Pat. A few minutes ago, I was just there. I did promise that I would be joining by an online. I'm glad to be part and parcel of the club. I'm actually fascinated by the Africana history. And this book brings a perspective which I wish I could actually learn more from colleagues in the group. Yeah, just in short, that's that. I am actually looking forward for insightful perspective of other colleagues. I do notice that the detail in the book favors more on the Africana, people with an Africana heritage, because if you had missing links, in your history of your family as an Afrikaner, you are able to join the dots quite quicker. So I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tate. I think
should Trevor not continue a bit with your background, Trevor?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to talk about the book. For me, I admire the legacy. Yeah. You know, for the fact that we are talking about, I think 3 generations, the way they passed through, I would say, their skills and also the love of whatever that they were doing. It's very, very touching and it's such a good lesson for me. How I wish I could do that in my family as well, because I'm loving the passing of the baton. It doesn't matter what kind of a baton for now for me, but the passing and to make it so intentional, it's really, really touching. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, let me thank everybody for coming and sacrificing your time with your family and be here. I also would like Skark to tell you how the history of this book club, how it started, because it's important. I don't want it to assume that you guys know it, but it's important that we, yeah.
Hello, Amal, again. I was in Bloemfontein, Brahm Fischer's town, without knowing it. And I was at a dinner Friday evening, half white, half black. But around the table was sitting some heavyweight ANC black leaders. And you know, they're not that popular these days. But I was listening to the stories, and especially one older gentleman, older than me, Brian, eh? Not the mayor was there. What?
Nakedi. His name is Nakedi.
Nakedi.
Brian Nakedi.
Nakedi. He was sharing, and he was under apartheid, not just like dumped or whatever. I think he was physically abused or beaten, tortured. He had a very serious struggle credentials. And I was listening to all of this, and it put the politicians in a new light for me, hearing about their stories. And at the end of the evening, the only thing I wanted to ask him when I had a chance is I said to him, from his perspective as a radical or whatever, as an Afrikaans kid, because I'm still a kid compared to him, although I'm 47, what black authors should I read? Because I read Biko and Sobukwe, but I thought he's academic, he's a professor. So I said, who should I read as a white guy? Which black authors should I read? And his answer shocked and irritated me because he said, don't worry about reading black people, unlike what I thought I'm supposed to do. And he said, read your own guy, Brahm Fischer. Brahm Fischer. And it's not what I wanted to hear, because he's pointing me back to another white person, which shocked me. And then I walked away from Brian, and Trevor and Clola was there, doctor, just jokes. Trevor was there, and I asked him, what are you reading at the moment? And out of his, even before, but there in your suitcase at that dinner, at the same suitcase, Trevor had this big book about Brahm Fischer, which he was reading currently. So for me, it was almost like a divine intervention with Brian, the ANC guy, telling me, read your own guy, Brahm Fischer. And then, yes, Trevor, who I know and respect, with the book in his hand. And I realized there, if I don't read this book, I'm disobedient to God and my elders and my ancestors and whoever. So all of you, I'm very appreciative to journey with you, but sometimes if you ask questions, you're going to get answers, whether it's what you want or not. And not to guide my own path, I'll stay in the same spiral. So when we get grace by a stranger telling you what to do, or Trevor forcing you in the book club, Dudu, or whatever your reason is, it's not me running my life. Other people can shape my path, even if it's pointing me to a book, for which I'm very, very grateful. So the fact that I don't have to do this alone is a very big blessing.
Thank you. So guys, that's how we started the history of this book club. That's how it started. The reason I respect Brahm Fischer is not because he's an Afrikaner. It's because he's a human being, and all of us who are sitting here are human beings. There's a temptation to live in this world and being less and less human and cling to our smallanyana identities, like being black. And then you suffer from a certain skin disease, and then you're no longer black. Yeah, and then you go like, how fragile is that? You know, today people can change their gender, and then you're no longer a man. So I know that's controversial, but I'm just saying, there's nothing that can be stolen from you being human, unless you do it yourself, unless you participate in that. And there's something about Afrikaners, they never chose themselves to be Afrikaners. So it is with other people. There must be a reason. I'm a theologian, I'm a Christian. So I often, they will say, I contemplate or meditate. But in my meditating about Afrikaners, I was thinking there's a reason why God made you to be an Afrikaner or being a German. That you have everything to stand for the truth. And I see this guy, the truth, the justice, peace. And I see Brahm Fischer being embodying being an African. And by the way, for me, Afrikaans that you are the only people in the continent who are named after the continent. You're the only one. And you should, I remember first time I was in some little town in Boland. It was my first time there. And I had never met a farmer. And then so I was in a farmer's meetings. And then they said, so your first time you being with the farmer? The Buddha said, yes. And they said, we know you sing Kill the Buddha, so today we're going to give you a hug. So this Buddha gave me a hug. So, and one Afrikaner there stood up. He was a Zimbabwean guy. He stood up and he said his message is God told him to tell the Afrikaners that you must do what you're supposed to do to take care of the people in this continent. I'm not saying I said that. I'm just telling you. So as a black person sitting there, it just revolutionized my mind. And then fast forward, I became a friend with a tall Afrikaner. His name is Venter. 1988, he came to Soweto. In Soweto in those days, the white people come to Soweto, either police, soldiers, or communists, or the Catholic nuns and what do you call it? Monks. Is it monks? Isn't it? Nuns and monks only. So if you're white, so these Afrikaners came and they started a church in Soweto, 1988, and we were suspicious. So we sit there and listen to them, and they were like, everything there was, you have to close your eyes, and then you realize this guy agrees with us. We are with him, and when you open your eyes, he's white. He's an African. He's an enemy, And then I walked the journey with this guy, and he said, Trevor, we must take you to university. Paid for my studies, literally. He took me to UNISA, put in the car. This Afrikaner took me to UNISA, paid for my studies. And then that's my journey with Afrikaners, unaware that God is healing me from my anger, my all the stuff that is within me. Fast forward, I became a pastor of these white churches, and there were a lot of Afrikaners in this church. And I don't know in Afrikaans, Katibasokolis. What do you say in Afrikaans? In English, I don't want to say. Afrikaners, I want to say in Afrikaans, they were troublesome in Afrikaans.
Full of problems.
No, that's not Afrikaans. You say it in Afrikaans.
How do you say troublesome in Afrikaans?
Afrikaans.
They were troublesome.
Troublesome. They were?
Moeilijk. Were they causing trouble?
They were causing troubles.
Moeilijk.
And one of them was a very super racist, and he used to annoy me, But I became and then there were those who were amazing that I just fell in love. I've forgotten that they were even Afrikaners. They're part of the church. Fast forward, I end up being a friend to, you won't believe it. Some of you know the story. Andrian Flock. And I don't know, do you know who is he? You look the youngest. Police during apartheid days. So we in Soweto, in a black community, because that was the height of it was a time when it was a state of emergency, people would disappear, detention without trial. So we're not scared of the president, we were scared of this name, Flock. Here I am, stumble upon him, cut the story short, we became friends. And then while I was studying at the university, somebody said, stop with your PhD on the subject that do your PhD on Andrian Flock. So it's like my journey has been like, and then before that, a few years later, I was in a meeting where I felt convicted, God telling me that you are a racist in 1988. Another time I can explain that. So 1988, I even cried because you can't tell a black man that he's a racist. I'm pointing to God, but God knows our heart. So my journey started that way, and I became a friend to Flock, and then I went to his house. We went around, and I knew politically it put me in a bad place as far as my relationship with black people are concerned. It just happened that I fear God and I fear black people. So I embraced the shame, the embarrassment, or whatever black people talk will label me, because I knew that the cost of reconciliation, I understand reconciliation is not cheap. And then until he died, before he died, he said, Trevor, thank you for working with me. In fact, that Sunday, I spent the weekend here at the backyard of your house when I got a phone call. And then when they told me that he just died. A few months before that, he had called me to say, goodbye, Trevor. I think I might die because I'm going to the hospital. They say the operation, I might not make it. So I just want to thank you for your life, for what you have done in my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then, of course, he did it. And I phoned him, and we laughed, and then that laughter was the last one. So my journey with Afrikaners and reading Brahm Fischer, there's something, and then now I'm a friend with Skalk, I'm a friend with Johan. And then, so when we started this home group, for me, I would like us to go back again after you have heard my story. I'm fascinated with Afrikaners, especially when I read the history. As I was reading the history, I would get annoyed. I forget that I'm doing an academic stuff. I'd put the book down and say, these Afrikaners. And then I'd be excited and see the hand of God, you know. And then my emotions would go like this. And then the more I read about Afrikaners, remember at the Turkish University, I went to the library, and there was a huge Afrikaner woman. And I said, I want the books on Africa. And she said, listen. She said to me, listen, not all Afrikaners are the same. And I was like, whoa. She said they are Western Cape Afrikaners. And they are, yeah. And then the more I read, they said they are, and they said they are the Transvaal Afrikaners. The more I read it, they said they're white Afrikaners. And they are black Afrikaners. So for me, being an Afrikaner, it's like it brings one to this, what is called the identity politics. You know, because there's a thing called identity politics, you know. And I think Brahm Fischer's story provoke us. And for me, this home group, let's call it the home group now. This book, like, I would like to hear more from you, Afrikaners. How do you relate? I mean, I know you've said something, but it will be good for me and Tammy. And I know I stopped you, but I would like you to come back to that point. But I would like to give our Afrikaners brothers and sisters. I'm not sure we have English people in this group. You said you're German.
Parents.
Or parents.
South African 30.
Yes, yeah. So
as close to English to anybody else.
Yes.
I'm the closest to the English. Don't shoot
Yeah.
me.
I'm
not token English. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask that we look at our time and then agree what time can we stop, so that when we flow, and then we shall have agreed, so that we don't feel like, no, but we didn't agree. What time is it now?
10 to 4.
10 to 4. What time can we stop?
You said we're completely done by 5.
Okay.
So if I could make a suggestion, maybe we should take a 5-minute break.
In between.
Just for toilet and
Yeah.
whatever now. Like when we close this first session and we stop the recording and we take a 5-minute break, and then we can chat again.
Okay. Before you do that, just so I started, you put me on the spot, and I don't think I did very well with my introduction, because I've heard everybody give a better context to their interest in the discussion.
Yeah.
And it's more about your background. For me, the background is everything. Everybody's background gives a context. So I just want to add to my background and my journey that I'm not sure where it's going, but I'm searching. Firstly, I think there's a lot more. So I think I potentially can represent a little bit of the English community.
Okay.
Having grown up, whilst my parents were German, I went to English schools that side of the hill. I don't know who the gentleman was. Was it Willem? You grew up at Unica Randburg Hoërskool. I lived next to it, so I'm now in the lager, but I was other side in Blackgowrie, the English side.
Okay.
Actually, Soti. Be that as it may, somewhere in my life, I came out of school. I was a privileged white South African. I've recognized that somewhere in my life, but I was a prejudiced white South African. That was just an indoctrination. It was a given. Somewhere in my life, I have become very aware of my life is all about balance. and our country is out of balance in a huge way. And I've become very aware of that. I'm not sure what it is, but it's that balance factor and fairness. And our country is very unfair. And I'm very conscious of that. And I'm not sure where it comes from. I suspect somewhere my parents, but they were South African, they were immigrants. They were learning about South Africa, but I think I've maybe got an open mind and open heart. I don't know what it is, but one of the things I'm searching for, and that's where the interaction with Skalk came about, but who I am has come from before that. But I'm very conscious of our problems in our country, and as a person who is a problem solver, maybe not good at implementing, but seeing problems and needing the country and being desperate for the country to solve its problems for all of us. I'm looking for those solutions. I'm looking for a place to contribute to those solutions. And the reason I engaged with Skalk was because I have a strong belief that we as South Africans, white and black and green and gold and yellow, we actually don't know each other.
Exactly.
We do not know each other. And this conversation confirms that. And because we don't know each other, in our differences, because we don't, and therefore we don't respect each other. I'm not saying there aren't groupings of people who do know each other and who respect each other, but generally we're in conflict, white, black. And until we don't get to know each other and understand our differences, even if we choose to disagree, agree to disagree, but at least start respecting each other for our differences in culture, in language, in whatever, we will never have a common purpose. And because we don't have a common purpose, we cannot solve our country's problems. And I use a simple analogy that, and it's very simplistic, but it's a proof of the concept. When we have a common purpose, we are world beaters, and we do it on the sports field. Because we have good leadership, because we have common vision, because we have common purpose. Then we work together and we are world beaters. But as a big community, we don't, because we don't know each other. So I met Skalk because, and the other point I just wanted to make is there's a lot more religion and Christianity. I think maybe I lived my life as a Christian. I'm not a regular churchgoer. I didn't come from a theological background or have studied it. I'm just a guy, right? Probably commercial, financial, problem solver, anal German, my wife would say. So that brings its other problem. That brings other problems. But I'm hopeful the heart is in the right place. But that brought me to Skalk. I happened to be at Skalk's church. My son and his girlfriend are a whole lot more religious. Invited us. It was an amazing sermon. I was the one. There's no question. I go to church because I think there's a goodness there. There's something there. So God may be talking to me, and I have frustrations that I can't meet this person and shake a hand and say thank you. But
You will.
So those are the bits. The German in me is like, I want to see this person. I want to shake the hand.
You want practicality.
But I spoke with, it was Tom, who I think is he not also part of this group? And I'd been asking this question about this dialogue that I think we need on a mass scale in South Africa. And I'm not sure how to do that. But he directed me, he says, yeah, we're doing something like that, but you need to speak to Skalk beter. And as we started talking, we've been interacting. And that was where Skalk then said, here's this book club.
Wow.
And for me, this is about, and Skalk reading his book and interacting with Skalk and about this one thing we don't do as white people. I think we do in our house, but we don't, is these relationships that we don't have. We don't know each other. And this for me is an opportunity. One, I didn't know anything about Brahm, Fischer either. There's a curiosity, but it was the curiosity about the dialogue, hopefully, and the interactions in this environment without knowing where it was going. The fact that the book has been interesting, that's me, I've got a curious brain, makes it positive, but it's these interactions that I'm hoping help me somewhere down a path.
Scott wanted to suggest something, yeah.
So sorry
No,
for
I
that
just-
little bit of a ramble there.
No, it was important.
I want to stop the recording, but before we stop the recording, to say to the other group members that see this, that you're not part of today's discussion, just do the same. It doesn't have to be a big drama. Take your phone, take a 5-minute monologue,
Yeah,
say who you are, why are you reading this, what's your desire, like Volker said now. He doesn't care what book, as long as we start talking about books, black and white together,
yeah. And
we
you
learn
don't have to
more.
be a Christian.
You don't have to be anything.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this, please share your snippet on the group. And that's how we move forward. So we're going to end the recording now and hear from individuals later on our WhatsApp group.
So we're taking a break now.
And we're taking a break.